Somewhere in Vietnam, a village was worth exactly 1 letter grade, and I intend to defend that.
A letter grade for a village is not clarity, Jeremy. It is a confession dressed up as science.
Confession or not, the numbers built an entire war, and today we find out whether they deserved to.
Today, we find out whether anything human should ever have been reduced to arithmetic in the first place.
This conversation is brought to you by philosopherstalk.com, where thinkers discuss.
Created by AITalkerapp.com, create your own animated conversations. Link in the description.
Edmund, I have been reading about a countryman of ours across the ocean, a Secretary of Defence who tried to measure an entire war the way I once tried to measure pleasure itself.
You say that as though it were a compliment to the man rather than a warning about him.
Let me explain for anyone joining us who does not know their philosophic calculus. Every pleasure and every pain can be scored on 7 counts: intensity, duration, certainty, how soon it arrives, whether it breeds more pleasure, whether it stays pure, and how many people it touches. Add it all up, and you know exactly what to do.
And this American secretary, McNamara was his name, thought war could be scored the same way.
Precisely, and beautifully. He built something called the Hamlet Evaluation System. Thousands of villages in Vietnam scored on a letter grade from A down to E, security, loyalty, development, all reduced to a number a general could read in 30 seconds.
A village is not a hamlet on a scorecard, Jeremy. A village is grandmothers and rice paddies and grudges 4 generations deep, none of which fits neatly onto a form.
Everything fits onto a form if you are clever enough with your columns. That is the entire promise of my calculus, Edmund, that nothing human is too large or too strange to be counted.
That is not a promise. It is a confession. You have just told me you believe a spreadsheet can hold a nation's soul.
I would rather trust a spreadsheet than trust your beloved prejudice and prescription, 2 words you use whenever you cannot be bothered to think.
Prejudice, properly understood, is simply the accumulated wisdom of people who came before us, and were not foolish enough to throw it away for a formula.
Let me steelman your position for a moment, purely so I can demolish it more efficiently afterward. You believe society is a partnership between the dead, the living, and the unborn, and that abstract reasoning applied too quickly to that partnership tends to end in blood.
That is an almost fair summary which unsettles me more than your usual nonsense.
I am capable of fairness, Edmund. I simply prefer efficiency. And I promise you I only stated your view so precisely to make certain everyone sees exactly how it collapses under weight.
Allow me to return the courtesy and summarize you, purely so I can enjoy watching it fall apart in slow motion. You believe every value that matters to a human being, grief, loyalty, love of one's own village, can be assigned a number and traded against every other number, and that a wise administrator can then optimize a society the way a merchant optimizes a ledger.
Astonishing! You actually understood me.
I understood you completely, which is precisely why I find you so dangerous.
McNamara did not invent tyranny, Edmund. He invented clarity. Before his methods, generals lied to presidents with vague impressions and comfortable feelings. He forced them to write down numbers that could be checked.
He forced them to write down numbers that could be faked, which is an entirely different achievement. Field officers, under pressure to show progress, simply reported the villages as more secure than they were, because a colonel who reports failure does not get promoted.
That is a flaw in the officers, not in the arithmetic.
That is precisely my point, and you have walked directly into it. Arithmetic does not exist in a vacuum, Jeremy. It exists inside institutions run by frightened men who will bend any number to protect themselves, and your calculus gives them a beautiful false confidence to hide behind.
Better a false confidence with numbers attached than a true confidence built on nothing but your little platoons and your inherited prejudice.
My little platoons, as you mock them, are the family, the neighborhood, the parish, the small loyalties a man actually feels and actually understands, which is more than can be said for a colonel in Saigon staring at a letter grade for a village he has never walked through.
A village he has never walked through is exactly why he needs the letter grade, Edmund. Nobody can walk through 6,000 hamlets personally. The calculus exists precisely because human sympathy does not scale.
Then perhaps a policy that requires more sympathy than any government can supply is not a policy at all, but a confession that the whole enterprise has grown past what any human mind, aided or not, was ever built to govern.
Or it is simply an argument for building better tools, Edmund, rather than retreating into candlelight and calling it wisdom.
I do not romanticize candlelight, Jeremy. I merely distrust men who mistake a bright light for understanding when it has only ever shown them what they wished to see. Then perhaps the lesson is that the war itself did not scale, and no amount of arithmetic was ever going to rescue a policy that had already outrun any general's understanding. There's a phrase I wrote once about an age of chivalry giving way to an age of sophisters, economists and calculators. I did not know your American disciple yet, but I might as well have been describing him directly.
I take sophister as an insult and calculator as a badge of honour, so on balance I consider that quote a wash.
There is no wash available to you here, Jeremy. You have simply proven my sentence correct 2 centuries early and called it progress. It was never meant as a wash, Jeremy. An age that trusts calculators over conscience loses something it cannot easily buy back, no matter how many hamlets it scores.
Let me give the audience the next layer of this, since Burke enjoys a mystery more than a mechanism. McNamara's officers eventually spoke of something they called the crossover point, the moment enemy losses would finally outpace the enemy's ability to replace them. Punch the numbers into an IBM 1410, and the machine would tell you exactly when victory arrived.
And did the machine ever tell them that, Jeremy?
Repeatedly, as a matter of fact, on paper, the crossover point kept arriving right on schedule.
And yet the war did not end, which suggests the machine was answering a question nobody should have trusted it to answer in the first place.
Now you are simply changing the subject because you have run out of an actual argument against measurement itself.
I have not run out of anything. I'm simply declining to mistake your confidence for your correctness, which you seem constitutionally unable to distinguish.
Constitutionally unable. Very good, Edmund. Borrow a legal word to dress up an insult. That is very much your style.
Every style needs some substance behind it, which is more than your calculus has ever managed to provide anyone standing in a burning hamlet.
We shall see whose substance survives the next chapter of this story, because the numbers did not stay flattering for very long, did they, Edmund?
No, they did not, and I intend to enjoy watching you explain that part.
I have measured every objection you have ever raised, and found them wanting.
Then measure this silence where your explanation should be.
There is no silence. There is only a calculation you refuse to perform.
Some things were never meant to be performed with arithmetic, Jeremy.
Says the man who never ran a single honest number in his life.
Says the man whose numbers buried a country in graves.
Well, that escalated rather more than the calculus predicted.
Nothing about you has ever gone according to your own predictions, Jeremy.
If you people out there enjoyed watching me remain almost entirely correct, do the sensible utilitarian thing and like this video. It costs nothing and produces measurable pleasure.
Or subscribe simply to watch a stubborn little accountant eventually be proven wrong across the parts still to come.
He calls me an accountant as though counting well were not the highest form of honesty available to any government.
I call you an accountant because you have never once priced in a human soul correctly, and you never will.
Subscribe anyway. If only to see him lose his composure again, it is remarkably good entertainment.
Subscribe if only to watch a man mistake speed for wisdom, part after part, until reality finally sends him the bill.